Wanda and Vision in the comics actually go and retire in New Jersey and have a family. However,
That's where you're gonna pick?
they do.
You're gonna go with New Jersey?
They do. I mean, it's not bad. They get
I'm not confused about them retiring. Superheroes deserve to retire, but New Jersey? You've saved the entire world. You have the power to bend reality to your will, and you pick New Jersey?
Vision is one of the most interesting characters in the Marvel canon, which made it such a bummer whenever he was offed in Infinity War. He is one of the most underutilized characters in the MCU, and as the upcoming WandaVision Disney Plus show is largely inferred to be in Wanda's head, Vision is probably still dead, which is why we think that this incredibly valuable character will eventually be rebuilt so he can rejoin the MCU. What happened to him while he was in the MCU? How does it compare to Vision in the comics? And how could he be resurrected? And what could that mean for his future? Join us as we dive deep into this topic. My name is Callum, and I am joined by my wonderful buddy Zach. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm having a lot of visions of some happy times for Wanda and the Vision in the futures. You know, that's so Raven visions. Oh boy.
Obviously, a lot of people who may not be familiar with the comics will really only know Vision from his outings in the MCU. Zach, tell me, when did you first see Vision? Did you jump in with him straight in Age of Ultron?
Yeah. I was keeping up with the MCU movies pretty well as they were coming out, and then they started making a bunch of them every year, and I was like, okay. But when Age of Ultron came out, I was there in the theaters, right there, seeing it all happen. And then, I was pretty much with everyone when Vision showed up, jumped on that train right away.
But, as we know, he was created to be Ultron's perfect body, or at least the shell was, because Ultron created a vibranium, android shell, which he would then inhabit, and then would also give him power over the Mind Stone. But the shell gets stolen, and then Stark and Banner then work together to then upload the remains of Jarvis, who was destroyed by Ultron, into the shell, and then this creates the Ultron-Jarvis hybrid with the Mind Stone to bring it to life, giving birth to MCU's Vision.
Vision helps out. First, he joins the gang, flexes by picking up Thor's hammer like a legend, and then helps the Avengers obviously take down Ultron and Sokovia and stuff. And then his next appearance is Civil War, right?
Yeah. His first appearance in Civil War is him walking into Wanda's room without permission, and they're like, "Use a door, Vision." You just wonder how many times that's happened prior. He just walks into the bathroom just being like, "It's okay, I'm not human. It doesn't really matter."
I love how because they get together afterwards, it's very obvious that he just kept walking in and he was like, you know what? Yeah.
During Civil War, we get a glimpse at Vision struggling to understand his own limitless power, and he's also trying to understand, everyone around him. He sides with Tony in the Sokovia Accords because he's doing it logically. He's not really thinking emotionally because he's still coming to terms with what emotions he's feeling. But because of this, it doesn't mean he completely lacks empathy. I mean, he does seem to feel for what Wanda has gone through. And especially in Civil War, he is angry that Wanda gets injured during the battle at the airport, and then whenever he takes aim at Sam to, stop Captain America and Bucky from fleeing, he accidentally just shoots Rhodey and completely disables him. Tony's like, "I thought you didn't get distracted." And Vision's like, I didn't either. He's like, I'm not perfect? What's going on?
Right, so Civil War happens, everybody's a little messed up, friendships torn apart, people's Legos were stolen and not given back. Scarlet Witch and Vision both ditch the Avengers, and they decide to move to Scotland and live together quietly and just nice under the radar, keeping it on the DL, while still kind of opposing each other, I guess.
They're on opposite ends of the spectrum because Vision's still technically on Tony's side, and of course Wanda's still technically on Captain America's side. But Captain America seems to be on the down low, keeping them on tabs, making sure they come home by 8. They have a curfew.
He's still looking at his watch. He's like, he better bring them home by 7. But then during the events of Infinity War, the Black Order, they attack Wanda and Vision because they're trying to secure the Mind Stone that's that's in Vision's head. Now they realize, okay, there's people coming after this thing. There's people who want my goods. So we've got to get this figured out. So they decide to see if there's a way of taking it out without actually killing Vision.
Yeah, Wanda doesn't want to lose her Ken doll of a boyfriend.
Normally there's nothing down there, but when he decides, at first, Vision and Wanda kind of agree okay, well, I'm gonna die because this thing is essentially my Duracell. If I take this out, this Furby's not gonna be talking no more. Eventually they're thinking all right, I'm gonna sacrifice myself for humanity. This is it. It speaks for how good of a quote unquote person he is. We find out that it's possible to separate Vision from the Mind Stone without actually killing him. So Tony's sitting there look, I may have created a new element for the periodic table, but I suck at operations, so that nose is gonna go bright red when I try and take this puppy out. And Bruce is just look, if I get a little stressed, I'm gonna grow Hulk hands and this whole operation's just gonna kaput. They bring Vision to Wakanda. They start the process of slowly removing the Mind Stone from him. But it's kind of a race against the clock because the ball chin man is coming. Josh Brolin's coming and he's, oh boy, somebody dyed his skin and he's not happy about it. They don't do it in time. Thanos gets there, he shows up at Wakanda, decimates everybody, and he takes his big fat sausage fingers and just yanks that Mind Stone right out of Vision's noggin. He surprisingly has pretty good precision with it. It's on the levels of Jotaro taking the Dio flesh bud from Kakyoin's forehead.
You'd think that Thanos would have problem dialing numbers into a small mobile phone, but apparently he's able to pry it with his fingernails just out of Vision's head, so clearly there's no problem there.
Obviously that's the last stone he needed. So he bloops that right in his thing there, right in his little glovey glove, and that's it. That kills Wanda and a good chunk of other people. Vision's already dead. But yeah, so that's the end of Vision right there.
Exactly, and after that, it's almost like things are just way too busy. People just kind of move on without Vision. That's it, right? Vision's dead, and I still think one of the funniest lines in Endgame is, "You took everything from me. I don't even know who you are." Exactly, that was oh my god.
Dude just doesn't care.
Yeah, exactly, he doesn't. But as we see in WandaVision, Vision and Wanda are living in this almost too perfect life in American suburbs.
But Callum, I thought that Vision was dead!
Well, so did we! Which is why the trailer, the way that WandaVision seems to be going, it seems to be taking a bit of inspiration of what happens in the comics. And not only just what looks to be the House of M comic run, but also Wanda and Vision in the comics actually go and retire in New Jersey and have a family. However, what
that's where you're gonna pick?
They do.
You're gonna go with New Jersey?
They do. I mean, it's not bad.
I'm not confused about them retiring. Superheroes deserve to retire, but New Jersey? You've saved the entire world. You have the power to bend reality to your will, and you pick New Jersey?
Well, it turns out that's a pretty bad decision because later on, that house actually gets burnt down by anti-mutant protesters.
It was actually a horrible decision. Wanda did not know how bad her spray tan would be, and the boardwalk was not as fun as everyone made it out to be.
What we know from the trailer, though, however, is that this isn't a real town. The town seems to be called Westview, right? Which is
I knew New Jersey was fake!
Well, it's a fake town name, right? And because reality is distorted, there's a bit where there's government agents and there's people being warped out of this little weird town. It seems that this is some sort of alternate reality. And whether or not that's because Wanda has created this separate reality in order to cope with everything that's happened to her, or it's someone else who's trapped Wanda in this reality, if this reality in WandaVision is a projection of Wanda's unstable psyche, does that mean Vision is just a projection? It doesn't seem that way because it seems like Vision is also realizing how weird everything's going on. So does this mean that Vision has actually been pulled into this alternate reality as well?
Gotta keep in mind, this could be a very big possibility of it being alternate reality stuff because the Doctor Strange sequel is called Multiverse of Madness and Scarlet Witch is gonna play a part in it.
It's very true. We're talking a lot about different realities, different comic book runs here, right? Let's actually dive into what the comic book run was like with Vision, right? So, okay, the way that Vision was created in the MCU was that Ultron created him with Helen Cho to create a vibranium body that he was supposed to inhabit. But in the comics, it's a real story about how he came to be. See, in the comics, he's actually the second version of the Human Torch. Professor Phineas Horton was a scientist who created the original android Human Torch to fight in World War II. But later on, Ultron got hold of a duplicate of that android and forced Professor Horton to build him a new one to try and infiltrate and destroy the Avengers, right? And the way that Vision is built, he's not even really an android, he's like a synthezoid is what they call him, and he's built from what's called Horton cells, right?
Power Rangers villain.
It does sound a bit like a Power Rangers villain, doesn't it? You see that gem in the middle of his head? That's not the Mind Stone in the comics, that's actually a solar gem, which is a device that was created by Professor Horton to allow him to absorb solar energy and use it as his power.
See, okay, so my joke from earlier makes sense. They didn't get Vision running on solar yet, so they couldn't save it. This dude photosynthesizes, and they decided to put the celestial stone in his brain?
Vision is essentially a glorified houseplant.
He's about as useful. Just kidding. Vision's really cool. I like it. In the comics, I like him a lot.
Well, right, in order for him to understand humans and become an android, right, they basically implanted the brain patterns and memories of Wonder Man, who was deceased at the time, right? And because he was an android, he was subjected to control various times throughout comic history to destroy the Avengers, but he ultimately broke free every single time. And after he broke free of Ultron's initial control, he became a very big part of the Avengers team, establishing a relationship with Scarlet Witch and even starting a family with her. And there are so many interesting storylines when it comes to Vision. I personally love the Vision takeover, right? Basically, after he retired to live with Scarlet Witch in New Jersey, Vision malfunctions and becomes bent on seizing the world's computers and defense systems in order to force a new age of peace, right? And
so he becomes a Redditor.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. He gets involved with the government, he becomes the chairman of the Avengers, and he's working slyly in the background to slowly, achieve control.
I will seize all of the Reddit karma.
Something that seems to be almost similar to what WandaVision's trying to do is after Vision and Scarlet Witch break up, Vision tries to create his own family of synthezoids in the form of his wife Virginia and his children Vin and Viv, right? But the thing is that because...
What's my name? Vision? What do I name my kids? Viv and
Don't attack my boy like this, dude. I love Vision. Right? But the thing is, right, is that he can't retire to a normal life. Oh, I'm in this life, but they keep pulling me back in. Literally, Vision's out there with a white shirt and tie. He prevents his children from flying. But the thing is that the Grim Reaper breaks into his house, right?
As the Grim Reaper does.
Yeah, and his wife Virginia then kills the Grim Reaper, right? And she hides the body.
I forgot the wife's name was Virginia. It's a whole list of V's.
Yeah. Did you not realize that?
No, I just realized the kids because they were both Viv and then Virginia. Dude! God, there's so many fish in the sea, but not when your pool is that small.
Virginia's trying to hide a murder. People get killed left and right. Vision ultimately can't have this normal life, and Virginia ends up sacrificing herself so that Vision doesn't get his life ruined.
No.
The Vision's place in the Avengers is that of a powerhouse, but he's also a little ostracized due to where he came from and his position. He has a lot of internal struggles that tend to be about his identity, how he interprets emotions, and his humanity. After Vision gets rebuilt by the West Coast Avengers, Wonder Man, who was used as the blueprint for Vision's brain, refused to let it be used again as he felt like his soul was ripped out of him without his permission because he was dead at the time, right? This means that Vision is building himself up, gaining all these emotions, he's getting all these memories, right? And then whenever he has to be rebuilt by Hank Pym, literally Wonder Man's like, nah, boy. So Vision just comes out like a chrome silver robot, right? Who has no emotions. If he was anything close to iRobot at the time, after that, he was just Alexa. So the
Vision, play Despacito.
There are obvious major differences between the vision of the movies and visions of the comics, and it's not controversial to admit that we've barely scratched the surface of what is possible with the Vision stories that could be told on screen.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there was so much potential for Vision in the movies, and realistically, what did we get? We got Age of Ultron, where he shows up and we're just kind of getting used to him, and we see a bit of how strong he is. We get Civil War, where he, to be honest, doesn't do too much. Infinity War, where he fights a little bit, and then that's it. He's gone. So ultimately, Vision was pretty underutilized. Like, there's so many different stories that could be told from the comics and in the movies and everything, and WandaVision might just be, like, scratching the surface. Like, that might just be the beginning of that. WandaVision is mostly inferred to be, like, inside of Wanda's mind and everything, though, and, like, her trying to deal with all the trauma she went through by creating this, like, picture of a perfect reality. We could expect that the Vision we see there, maybe he might not be real.
See, because that's the thing, right? Is like, I think that Vision should come back. But that's not the question here. It's not if he should come back. It's more like, how is he going to come back, right? That we do see the separation of Vision and the Mind Stone being almost complete, and it's said that it's possible for the two to separate, right? He could come back, just maybe not as powerful as he was before. Now, it's mostly inferred in the MCU that most of Vision's powers, like phase shifting, solar blast, and so on, all come from the Mind Stone. In order for him to regain those abilities, he would have to get something that replicates that. But whether the MCU wants to go down that road, we're not sure.
I think if he comes back in the MCU but not as strong, I think that could actually work well. The MCU it's not like grounded in reality, but it does seem to take a more realistic approach than the comics, right?
Yes.
Because Vision and Scarlet Witch are two insanely powerful heroes in the comics. They do some of the most insane stuff that you see going on in there. And the thing is, for the cinematic universe, I don't think it works that well. Like, yeah, we should have heroes that are able to do that, but the thing is if you take that Vision and Scarlet Witch and you put them against the villains that we've been seeing in the movies, they'd wipe them out like so fast, no question.
Absolutely,
so
dude.
That's probably why Vision's underutilized, because if he steps in for every fight, like after he's introduced, it's over so fast. Because of how strong he was. So if he comes back toned down, then it would make sense. Maybe leave scraps of like his true power and everything like that we can see later on. But until then, he's fighting around the same level as the other heroes, instead of all them being pretty low to the ground and him being like, "What's up, guys? I'm 300 feet in the air looking down on you. You all suck."
If he's to come back, he has to be rebuilt in some way. Now, we know in the comics that he was rebuilt by the likes of Tony Stark at one point, which we know can't happen now because Tony Stark's dead in the MCU.
Super dead. Talked about that in another episode of the podcast.
Hank Pym also rebuilt him to the best of his ability.
He's still alive, so you know.
Yeah, exactly. He's still alive, and there's still plenty of Brainiacs in the MCU, and still plenty that could be introduced and stuff like that. There are also plot lines where he's taken over and switched to different bodies and versions of himself. If Vision still had the Mind Stone when he was revived, right? None of those plots where he's taken over would really make sense, because, the Mind Stone is about taking over other people. And you think that, even as an android, he wouldn't be able to be taken over because of the Mind Stone. But if he's got the Mind Stone removed, things where like he's taken over or he malfunctions and stuff like that, plots like that can happen. Vision isn't just an artificial intelligence who's gained emotion like in the comics. Here's what I think. I believe that he could have developed an actual soul while attached to the Mind Stone, or at least a consciousness that is tangible.
Kind of like the power from the stone like leaking into him.
Yes,
thing,
exactly.
Right?
And the thing is, right, is that Wanda has a connection to the stone because her energy is the exact same. Wanda is dealing with everything in WandaVision. She could be pulling what is essentially Vision's soul into this alternate reality, right? Because the thing is that something like this happens similar in the comics. Vision and Scarlet Witch have children in the comics, but it turns out later on that those children aren't actually their children. They're just fragments of souls from another character in the MCU that Wanda just so happened to be able to pull and manifest into these two children, right? If she's able to pull in his soul or pull in his consciousness into this alternate reality, this could mean that she could help put that consciousness into another body later on. I mean, creating an artificial body is not the hardest part. It's very clear, like, from Age of Ultron onwards, building, like, fantastical machines or whatever isn't the hardest thing to do. The real question is whether or not Vision's mind can be relocated, or whether or not it will need to be replicated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could kind of be similar to the thing how, like, there's some discourse or, like, debate on whether or not everyone who was snapped away in Infinity War, whether they died or whether their souls were just kind of placed in a limbo due to the Soul Stone. down, and then they were just put back. Because it's like no one ever really confirms that they were like dead, but that's kind of the most that they could infer. It might be something along those lines where like the soul can be manipulated and stuff like that. So if that's the case, Vision could be put back into like a new body or something. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
And here's the thing, right? This doesn't even like take into account the potential like hell reality theory that's been going around as well. Because in the trailer, right, there's this character that's called Agnes, which a lot of people think is actually like a shift around of a character called Agatha Harkness, who's a witch who could have a connection to the devil Mephisto, right? Who's basically the devil of the MCU. Like the idea is that Wanda's been trapped in this alternate reality, right? It could be the case that Agatha could be trying to take advantage or manipulate Wanda so that she can get that power. Mephisto could be doing the same thing, because it's obvious that this alternate universe actually does have a place in the real world, because the agents we see being blasted out of the reality in the trailer shows that, okay, this is a place that exists. It's just that it's not immediately accessible. It's not in the real world, but it's accessible by the real world. All of this in regards to Vision coming back to the MCU, I think one way or another, be that because of Wanda being able to bring his consciousness into this reality, or whether or not he has to be rebuilt or replicated, you know, a backup of Jarvis has got to be somewhere. But after he comes back, Vision's place in whatever superhero team that they place him in is going to have to be better solidified, because for what it's worth, he was pretty much just relegated to being on the side of Tony and affectionate for Wanda. Like, he was barely given any development, even though the end of Age of Ultron was so interesting, right? When he cornered Ultron, he said that there was a grace in humanity's failure. And I thought that would be so amazing for him to explore, right? He'll need to develop a bigger role than just the toddler learning to speak French kind of character that he is at the moment. And he was such a huge part of a couple of different superhero teams in the comics, like the Uncanny Avengers, the West Coast Avengers, the main Avengers, etc. His position as part of those teams was just a logical thinker, but he's a powerhouse. He could be a leader in the MCU if you give him enough time, but a lot of work is definitely going to need to be done to bring him back before he can make those steps. And
Vision and the Wonder Squad.
Vision and the Wonder Squad.
All they do is covers of September by Earth, Wind, and Fire, and it just puts the villains like right in their place.
That's perfect. I mean, whichever way they decide to bring him back is going to have lasting effects on the rest of the MCU. But at the end of the day, he's going to come back. It's just a matter of how and when. Thank you so much for tuning in. We want to hear what you think about Vision's future. Could Vision be rebuilt? Was he underutilized? And how would his return affect the MCU?
And was he smelly the whole time?
Was he a stinky boy the whole time? Let us know in the comments below, on Twitter or wherever. We'd love to hear from you. Be sure to follow us so you can get in on this conversation. Thank you so much, guys. My name is Callum, and this is Zach. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye-bye!